right, we are live. This is Jeff Lichtenstein. I'm the owner and broker of Echo Fine Properties, and this is the podcast. So our guest today is Victoria Lorusso. So let's see where she is. Victoria, come on into the podcast.
Good to see you. Oh.
I have a purse for you.
Oh, thank you.
You left it here. We did this whole staging thing with the stuff. So, Victoria, tell me a little bit and tell our audience a little bit about your background. You're from Connecticut and you've been in the business.
My mother started in the business 100 years ago. Not quite, but a long time ago. And it was something I wasn't thrilled with doing myself, but a divorce and impending divorce with kids seemed like a good thing to do, and raise money and be there for my children. So I spent about 12 years of my first part of my career in Connecticut, and then came down here to Florida, and love Florida. It was a big learning curve, but I now have firmly under my feet all the different country clubs, the beach communities. It's a great place to live. Why would you live anywhere else?
Yeah, there's more women in the business than men, and I think a lot of times that's what happens. It becomes a second income for some, or in your case, you needed the income and that career. How was that scary getting into it in the beginning?
No, because thankfully I was mentored by somebody who had been doing it full time for a long time and knew the business well. She traveled around the country learning, doing different conferences, and then I, in turn, followed her and did those same conferences, had that high level of learning, and really tackled it full time.
So what did you learn? What did you learn from her?
I think a lot of it is, for example, we have our systems where we track and all of our information about our clients. So it's very recorded, keeps us fresh, up to date all the time. She did that religiously. Before there was really the internet that you could do it on the internet. It was a program that you had to do. But, if you called me up 5 years after I met you, and I could remember because I had my notes that your dog was Spot.
Right, and you were very good with that. So your parents was it the first team? At that point, it was a Keller Williams brokerage?
No, it was not. They were with William Ravis at the time.
Okay.
And they were one of the first teams. In fact, my mother was one of the first people to put her picture on a business card.
Okay. I remember when I entered the business, that was just starting, and people were like, and stuff. So how is the real estate market different, or how does the practice at least different from Connecticut? Because a lot of clients who end up in here, they're usually coming from the Northeast.
Connecticut, New Jersey,
so
Massachusetts.
How is real estate different here, both from a buyer, perspective, and from a real estate agent perspective? Because I know it was different for you when you got into it.
Well, where I was from in Fairfield County, Connecticut, basically we would draw up a 3-page binder, and that's your offer.
Yes.
And
there's no binders in Florida, by the way.
And then we would do the inspections, and we'd have 2 attorneys. A buyer and a seller would each have an attorney, and they would finalize the final contract. When I came to Florida, we don't have that. We go right to contract. And the first couple of times I was shaken, but very nervous because I didn't feel like I had.
Because the buyer's buying the house in here,
and
whereas
it's a
before
legal contract that I'm doing versus an attorney.
Did you have? Was it on? There's on or about. I know in certain states. Did you have that in Connecticut?
On or about.
Because in New York, a lot of times they say on or about, and anybody can move the date whenever they want. It's like this loose thing. Where here it's like the effective date of the contract is you're handing over keys if you're the seller, and the buyer has to come up with the money, and if not, you're in a lot of trouble.
One of the big differences is that you remove 2 egos from a transaction. And I actually find the transactions much simpler. People say to me, oh, what attorney do I use? You don't need one. Whether you're a buyer or a seller, you don't need one. The title companies, I particularly like using title companies that are attorney-owned.
I do too.
If I need help, I've got it, and they normally kind of chip in.
And it's typically, I've always told a buyer seller, you probably don't need one, but if the deal's getting squirrely, that's when you need to bring an attorney into play. And we usually know that early on, or you can tell at some point in the process if something happens.
I also like to use attorneys when we're dealing with new construction.
Right.
There's too many variables there. And so I like to know that my buyers got their back
Or if
covered.
the deal's getting more complicated and it's not a keep it simple, type of a,
Oh, yeah.
type of a,
Quite definitely.
type of a transaction. So how was it different when you moved here to Florida? How was it? Because you also moved, I think, when the market was also in that whole Big Short, market.
Yes,
Where was
it's
it?
a big short sale market.
So how was it different? How was it different from a realtor's perspective, from going from Connecticut to Florida?
From my personal perspective, I mean, I did most of my transactions were 700,000 up to about 3 million in Connecticut. When I came here, I had to change my stripes. Mm-hmm. And you basically, I mean, part of the reason I left was that market, that bubble had burst, and they were going down. And this market, the short sales and everything, we were kind of climbing out of it.
Right.
And that's where I saw the opportunity. And indeed, there's been great opportunity, and we've had a really good run. And I still see, I was talking with a seller this morning before coming here, and he said, "Is this the right time?" And I said, "Yes." And he says, "But what happens in June?" I said, "It's still the right time. Just because we have a whole bunch of people, extra audience here now, doesn't mean that there aren't still buyers in the market for sellers who want to sell."
Well, I think on a long-term basis, it's always going to be the right time. I mean, if you track back to, in 1980 in Palm Beach County, there were 500,000 people here, and that number's like a million. Can you check it, Rob? What is the population of Palm Beach County? I think it's like 1.6 million or 1.7 million.
I think that's
so
right.
It's going up every year, and because of the weather and the taxes and the lifestyle. And I think we have such a more of a base of people here now, and there's more relatives where people know it's going to continue to go up.
One thing I find that is interesting, though, with a lot of buyers, they come down and they want new construction because their parents had new construction, so now they want the new construction, but there's no land left.
Right.
And we have very little new construction.
How many is it?
1.5 million as of 2021.
Out of 2021. I know that I think Florida was,
Probably went up from that.
this year we were the fastest growing state in the United States. So it's
Over 2 million at this point.
no, but we're
Not that fast.
but we're moving at a very fast pace. I mean, if you think about it, since 1980, it's tripled in size, but there's not the land, at least in our area. There are if you go like by 441 in Boynton or something, there's new construction there, like where the Valencias are. But then you're really having to go up north to Port St. Lucie,
or
out west to
Avenir is
Avenir.
building 4,000 units of homes.
Yeah, and I think and they'll probably about 10,000 homes when it's all said and done. We start adding in Bay Hill Estates and Ibis and some of the other stuff, and they'll open up the restaurants and stuff. But I think that happened probably in all the northern, like I'm from Chicago, and my parents moved to Highland Park. That's where I grew up. And that was like the boonies and farmland at the time, and it was 25 miles from downtown Chicago. And then by the time I graduated, my group of friends couldn't afford that area, so we'd go to like Buffalo Grove, which was another 15 miles west. So our area is really going through the same thing, but the difference is we're not going to stop growing because of the advantages.
The people are still coming.
Right. We're way too established, and there's too much culture here. And Kravis Center, when I came here, was 2000. That's when it first opened up. Maltz Theater opened up. I think it's like 12 years ago, and I think they're on their fourth or fifth, renovation. So that part's going to continue to grow. So I think for that reason, alone, it's the real estate values are going to do nothing but increase.
Well, I don't know if you saw the statistics they just put out for December, which I thought were very interesting. Sales are down 34%, but values are up 12%. It's a kind of inverse relationship we don't normally see.
Well, I look at this. I've called it like the pause. Like we're just in a pause right now with transactions, and I think when we get through, we got through last season. I think the worst of that is over. The people are needing to make decisions. We were talking to one of the guys in the office who has a 1.5 and a 3-year-old, and it was just enough. They're in 1,200 square feet, so they're holding off because of the interest rate, but they have to find a solution because it's just not, life's starting to pass by, and the want is becoming a need. So there's a lot of pent-up demand, both on the buy side and the sell side, because people are delaying things, on the interest rate side of things. And some of the rates, it may go down to 5 or 4.5 or 5.5, but some of this is probably here to stay to a certain extent too, and you can't just put your life on hold.
No,
forever.
but people do have to understand, and because I've been in this so long, I've seen
Right.
this cycle before. And years ago, I had a young couple, and they were looking in that $450,000 range. This is probably 20 years ago. And the market moved, and they took a 6-month break. And when they came back, They couldn't get nearly close to what they were looking at before. It's kind of heartbreaking, but it's a lot of what we have going on now.
What does this remind you of? You've been in the business long enough where right now an experienced agent is really important in a lot of ways. There's a lot of value to it. Where do you see parallels, or is it that you know what to do when you're not panicking in a situation because a buyer and seller is doing this once every 11 years?
I think I have seen every possible inspection issue known to mankind. I don't think you could surprise me with anything.
What's the strangest inspection issue you've ever seen?
Well, when you're standing behind a truck and they're pumping a septic, and the guy behind the truck tells the guy to turn the lever, and there's a big guy standing over the hole, and your client's standing next to you, and he's bald. And when he turns the lever, it sprays everybody with sewage. And the big guy, me included, and the big guy I start laughing because I don't know what else to do. He starts laughing so hard, and he looks up and he says to my client, "Dude, tomorrow morning you're going to wake up with a full head of hair. You've been fertilized."
Did he buy the house?
He did.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
I had someone, a wife, fall through an attic. She shouldn't have been up there. Inspector allowed her to go up, and he came down without her. She came through the ceiling with her foot backwards at the end. They bought the house.
We just had that happen to one of the new agents, and the inspector called out, and it was this guy has this car, and like the car's like his, the car is his life. Was it a Corvette or what?
Or Maserati.
Maserati,
yes.
and I get a call, and it's like and panic, and from our realtor, and the inspector is in the attic, and he goes, I'm falling, and our agent comes running into the attic, and all of a sudden he bursts and falls through the attic like this is like a Three Stooges thing, falls onto the realtor, and they both fall onto the Maserati. And then the wife is panicking. He's like, he's going to kill somebody. And the husband's coming home and yelling and stuff. And they're running out of the house. And it's like a crazy scene. But that went through. So
yeah, I mean, stuff happens. There's all kinds of crazy things. I mean, I've had buried oil tanks under structures. It's an issue.
So how do you calm it down when the unexpected, which is almost to be the expected, happens?
Well, I think it's being calm, first of all, and second, having the resources to bring in the experts that says, no, because I can't be an expert in everything, but we've got plenty of resources that says, okay, let's look at this roof, let's look at this air conditioning, let's look at these termites, whatever it is. We've got enough resources to help support our buyers and our sellers for things that may come up.
Well, there's about, I think 95% of the time you know what to do in a situation, but there's still variables that are different that happen all the time. Although the attic story now, that's the second time I've heard that. So, eventually you start to get through some of these things. But there's so many different variables. And it's hard because you have different personalities. You have, if you have a husband and wife, you've got different personalities there. And then the other side has different, and then you're dealing with an agent who's a different personality. And every home is unique. And it has its own peculiar things.
And every set of buyers are unique,
Right.
We think we can help guide people through a house, and then he goes that way and she goes that way, and you don't know which way to go.
How do you size people up? Meaning, sometimes a buyer doesn't know what they want exactly. How do you figure out, and is it talking to both sides of it, part of that?
I think it's listening. The biggest part is letting them talk and listen and take it in, and then just try and guide them. I have seen far too often where realtors don't shut up and they don't really hearing their clients. They need to be heard. It's in there. You just got to let them get it out or gently pull it out. It's there.
What's a favorite part of being a real estate agent?
I feel like often people are settling, never finding something that's 100% right. So on rare occasion, when you get that, they're like so jumping up and down and excited. I get excited too. I like to see people happy, and I also love when they come back to me. A few years later, we made a good decision. They've lived life, created memories, and they're now back for another stage of life.
How do you handle the stress of it?
Have a glass of wine every night.
What type of client's your least favorite client, or the ones you also don't even want to take?
Well, I've fired a few, if you recall. I've definitely fired a few. I had one lady who sent me 22 texts, knowing I was at a function, 22 texts in an hour, and then called you and said I was unresponsive.
Right.
So I think I'll pass on those people.
Yeah. My grandfather had a saying that I learned from, which was you can't do a good deal with a bad guy. And I remember something. I remember seeing this. It was a family friend of ours had a store with televisions, appliances. Very, very successful guy. But it says we'll handle any reasonable request. And I think you bend over backwards to handle a reasonable request.
Yes.
But there are guidelines. I was talking to Will earlier, and some lady called at 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning, wanting him to. There was a beeping going on in a rental, and that's an unreasonable request. Right. And agents are human, and there are, I think there's times that that you're going to get back, but it's not like you can call 24 hours a day with it. And you're pretty responsive.
I try to be.
You have to be in there.
I also do. Everybody's different, but when I'm with a client, I don't pick up my phone. It's their dedicated time.
Right.
And some people don't appreciate that if they're the one that's their call's not being picked up immediately. But I do the same for them. So fair is fair.
I think it's the worst habit right now is everybody's looking at their smartphone so much that they're not present in the moment, and then you're missing stuff. I mean, sometimes you have to be, like if you're waiting on you have an agent or you're flipping in the middle of it and you say, oh, this house will fit for you, when you read somebody's personality when you're out in the field with them, so you have to be on. But there is a whole thing where everybody's way too much on their phone.
Go to any restaurant these days, it's kind of sad.
Right. Although it probably saves some marriages out there too.
Who knows?
There's a new development that's going on in Eastpointe. So can you tell a little bit about what Eastpointe Country Club is? Because you have a lot of experience there, and then what's going on, because it's one of the few new developments in the area.
Well, Eastpointe has been kind of a best-kept secret. It's located just immediately west of 95 on Donald Ross. So you're 9 minutes to Juno Beach.
And you can get out, and then Hood Road, too. There's the entrance there.
Yeah, they have two on Donald Ross.
Amazing location.
Between Hood Road. So you're 9 minutes to the beach, and it's the dog beach, so it's pet-friendly, which is awesome. You have tons of restaurants just immediately north and immediately south. So the choices are endless. And of course, with Alton now, which is only like half a mile down the road, you've got that many more choices.
Right.
They have two golf courses, Fazio designed golf courses, both very different golf courses, which is kind of cool. So one's got wider, longer fairways. The other one's shorter, narrower fairways with more water hazards.
I mean, it's known for its golf course.
Absolutely, it's known. And for years, they had two clubhouses, and they merged the clubhouses.
Right, this is like a war of the clubs that went on forever.
The Hatfields and the McCoys there for some time.
Yeah.
But they did manage to merge the clubhouses, and the conversation became, well, what do we do with two clubhouses and two driving ranges? And then it was, what are the clubs were failing around the country, left and right?
Right.
So it was, what do we focus on to thrive and survive? And that is fitness. So they looked at redoing one of the buildings that currently had a pool, and it was discovered, well, it's going to cost X million of dollars to do it. It's still not going to be exactly what they want. What if we just start new? So they looked at selling land and did go into contract for the sale of land. And that will be 75 new homes that will be constructed. That land sale has now closed, so Eastpointe no longer has that land, and the builder is clearing it and making way for the homes as we speak. And the new facility, which they're calling a lifestyle center, has an 8,000 square foot gym with unbelievable state-of-the-art.
Is that part of Eastpointe, or is it separate?
It is part of Eastpointe.
It is part of Eastpointe.
Lifestyle center.
So what is there? Is it 875? Is that the count in Eastpointe?
875 homes currently.
Right.
And
So then what's that going to go?
75.
So it's going to be 75.
Yeah,
and
so they will be part of the membership.
And it will have a membership.
Yes.
So what will end up being what price range will that be, and then what are the homes like there?
Well, that price range has been massaged quite a bit, so I don't know for sure quite yet. There's some kind of accurate guessing, you'd say. Initially, the focus was kind of going to be around $650, but that's before the mayhem in the market occurred.
Right. And there's no land left anymore, so
Correct.
it's like They're all by themselves.
So they're probably going to be around, I would think, 850, 900.
It's really cheap if you think about it, though.
So, and
yeah.
then to go up, who knows how
Right.
far up from there. There'll be 0 lot lines. 5 sites have views over the golf course. And it's a quality builder. We're excited to have them as part of the community. And they'll all be walking distance to this recreation center. So not only do you have the gym, but you have 2 brand new pools, one adult only, one family friendly with a beach entry, and a brand new bistro, sports style.
Yeah, that's how all the clubs. I think there's so many of even non-clubs, have a problem in this area where they built like these 1995, clubhouses that really don't serve much of a function, and there's a little swimming pool in there. So when you start all over, it's
Everything is unbelievable.
So it's gated as well, then.
It's within the gates of Eastpointe.
Okay. So it's man gate.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it really is amazing. And sales are very strong in there. They continue to be strong. They have a lot of people moving out of high cost communities as well, like Frenchman's Creek and Mirasol, just finding Eastpointe a little more affordable. A lot of people, the homes are old, they're 40 years old, but a lot of people coming in and they're fixing them up.
Has there been a few knockdowns in there at all?
Not yet.
Not yet. So what percentage of them have been remodeled? Because I know the investors went in there and.
There was some, but mostly there are end user homeowners that are doing it. So we just had one that closed for 115. It was remodeled, and it was a young family actually that owned it, and it wasn't that much.
No, the values in there are
quality.
great, and sometimes people want they don't want a membership, but it's worthwhile to have the membership because it's so far below. When you start adding up your costs, you could be paying for your membership for a long period of time.
Well, it really is a bargain when you look at it because it's $4,600 per year for a minimum social membership, and that gives you access to everything but golf.
It's nothing. It's like joining Lifetime Fitness or whatever. It's
Exactly.
It's a very inexpensive club.
Yeah.
All things being considered.
And a great group of people.
So if you give a plug for Victoria. So it's Victoria at Echo Fine Properties, and you can reach Victoria by phone at
561-531-4977 or Victoria at Echo Fine Properties.
Let's see what else I had for my notes in here. New agents coming into the business. What advice do you give the new people?
Learn the communities because they don't do a lot of agent open houses here, unfortunately. I was used to that in Connecticut. That was another giant difference. And so I knew my inventory like the back of my hand. But we don't have that here. So
you have hundreds and hundreds of these subdivisions.
Yes.
And if you go to PJ National alone, there's 43 subdivisions within there. So the numbers start, and then you have all these condo buildings. So question for me when I'm interviewing an agent, I'm like, tell me what you think of Aquarius. And I'm like, the sign? Or I'll say, tell me what you think of Eastpointe. And sometimes they say the country club, sometimes they say the Singer Island condo.
The town.
And you need to know all of this, and it takes a long time.
It does.
To learn the inventory. How did you learn the inventory? What do you think the best way for a new agent to learn it is?
It really is doing, just as I said, making a list and visiting those. These days with people buying homes on FaceTime, and I've done 6 of those this year. You can have a client on your phone and be showing virtually in any of the communities, but I would go and visit a few homes in each of the communities. It's the only way to learn it.
What other tips?
They need to let everybody know they're in business. That's a lot of things. Email is not the same as the snail mail, in my opinion, because a business card sits on a desk. I'm still a little old school in some of that, so you kind of got to cover it both ways.
Well, I think our business people like paper and brochures, and they like seeing the glossies and things like that.
And our brochures are really special. I think that people really do appreciate them. I've always thought brochures are very important because if you're out there looking at homes and you look at 8 homes in one day, which is about the max I'll show anybody at one given point, they start to blur. That one had the pool. No, that one didn't have a pool. That one had a view. No, it didn't have a view.
I think for in our business, it's not you go to a car dealer, you usually get a brochure, and there's some they're real nice brochures, and some of them went offline. But a $100,000 car is an expensive car. You go into a house, even if it's a little house you may think of as this is a $300,000 condo townhouse. It's a major purchase for somebody, and that's like for them, that means everything.
Well, it
And
still
they're
has
li- and they're
special
li-
features.
It has, right, it has lots of special features. So, and you're going to remember, you're going to remember that. So I don't know. I think people, it's a bigger purchase, and you're going back and you're looking at it, and a house is tangible, and maybe it's not like, just buying a small product. So the information that you get out of it and all the little features, become some of the difference between, buying and selling something.
Especially when they're maybe debating between two homes and they're looking at the pros and the cons of each.
How do you learn the features best from the client when you're selling a house on the listing side? How do you convey that?
Well, convey it to the buyer.
Yeah. How do you learn the house?
Well, you learn the house by really walking it as if it's your own. And a lot of times, as we know, sellers, they just use the garage door and they don't use the front door. So we have to kind of pretend we're also the buyer. Now we're looking at, that, is nuts, and put that away and do different things to enhance the house. And also talking to them and understanding what they feel is special about the house because they've lived in it. They know it better than anybody else. It's a great way to start anyway.
How do you get bad news across to clients? So bad news meaning if there's a price adjustment that's needed or staging that they really don't want to do or if they need to spend some money.
Facts. Facts speak loud and clear. If you can present somebody with facts, a lot of times you don't have to sell it, if you will, what you're trying to. It will sell itself. It's just presenting the truth.
What can you tell me personally about your family and your kids and a little bit about you so people know?
So I have 3 amazing kids I'm very proud of. My daughter actually is about to pop, having a baby any second, so I'm waiting for that phone call. It'll be my first grandchild, so I'm super excited.
Oh, wow.
My son is he's with his new wife, who just got married in July. They're in Australia at the moment at a destination wedding. Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And my other son is in Maryland. He's also married, and he's got horses and goats and chickens and a nice farm there.
And people like to visit Florida, so you're in a good...
I love it here. I will tell you, when I go up north and I'm trying to visit with them, I'm chasing them. They're busy, they're working, I understand. But when they come here, I have them all to myself for a few days. So.
I think being a realtor in Connecticut, you understand what that market's like and what it's like to sell a house there and what they're thinking. And then the lifestyle changes here. So you're raising your family and you're, at the dinner table at night and doing all that. And when you move here, life changes for people. So they, I think, I don't need to be, I can be farther away from the main area but your life with your friends and the kids are out of the house and people go through the empty nester and what do I do for hobbies? How do I meet people? That's all very different.
Well, it is different because when you're raising your kids, it's easy to meet through their different activities. But down here, we have so much going on between golf, the beach, pickleball. Oh my gosh, pickleball, tennis,
The theater.
Yeah, there's you name it. There's something to do.
And you've taken people out even boating.
Yes.
For boating tours and
Yes.
stuff like that, which must be really cool.
Yeah, we do have a boat and a 43-foot boat. So if you want to tour by the water, we could do that too.
Do you see it differently when you're touring on the water?
You do totally see it differently. Because don't forget, a lot of our streets here have little canals, so the homes are of different values. Some of them are just a little street that ends with a big, beautiful, multi-million-dollar home at the end of the street. But when you're driving up to it, not as pretty. So from the water, all you're seeing is...
And you see different wildlife in there. Whether you're seeing a dolphin or a manatee or...
Exactly.
It's such we forget, I think, because we're living here now, how special all this is, because they're looking at it and they see like, there's a manatee or whatever that comes by. Or
there's a spot up by Tiger Woods house that we like to anchor, and during the summertime, if I sit on the swim platform and tap my feet in the water, the catfish come.
Oh, that's cool.
They're all about the same size, little whiskers.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different things here.
Yeah. Well, there's so many. I think the nature in Florida, whether it's on land and some of the parks in here.
Oh, yeah, the birds are amazing. There's plenty to do. Plus, we have, there's Lion Country Safari, and another thing about our location, which is great. And I do tell people we're 2.5 hours to Orlando, we're 45 minutes to Fort Lauderdale, we're an hour and 15 to Miami, and we're 2.5 hours to Naples. So you're kind of in a very central place. It's easy to get
Right.
to.
Our son
everything.
goes to UCF, so it's 2 hours and 15 minutes. Or we're going to go meet him, and we're going to go to Epcot Center in a couple weeks, just as a
Nice.
day with him. And then this weekend's my wife's birthday, so she wanted to go. We're going to do, day at the Fountain Blues to spend a couple nights. And they're like such wildly, or the Keys. They're just different locations, and the amount of things to do here are really, it really surprised us when we got here because you didn't think about, how much there is to do in Florida.
Weekend
it's-
there's an
Yeah.
abundance of them. Even St. Augustine, or as you just said, the Keys, they're just a few hours away as well.
All right.
Living in Eastpointe, you guys, I know you always see photos of you, different golf carts decorated up pink for different things. There's so many events that you guys have just in your community itself, right?
Eastpointe, the gals at Eastpointe take every opportunity they can to have a theme of something. And they will decorate golf carts any way they possibly can. So for the holidays or a wacky Women's Day, they have some serious fun.
So, you do a lot of sales there, but you also, you've done Old Palm, you've done Dallin Isle, you've done PGA, you've done Ibis.
Marisol,
and,
Singer
and,
Island.
and you've done things on the water. So Victoria's really well versed for an agent, just with, with a lot of, experience, and she's a very good agent. Anything else that I left out?
No, I don't think so.
Rob, did we leave anything else out?
I heard she's a good golfer too.
I try. I had my lowest score yesterday,
What is your lowest score?
46.
All right.
That was my lowest.
All right.
I had a birdie and a par. That's it.
That's good.
No, I'm not there. I don't play enough golf because I'm working all the time, and work is my priority. So,
All right. So I think we're done. So that's it for the podcast. Victoria Lorusso, Rob Moore, on the camera, Randy, Jeff Lichtenstein, and we are over and out.